Hi everyone. In this session we'll discuss the threats posed by API query parameter tampering and how they can be prevented with the Forum Sentry API security gateway. Parameter tampering attacks are based on the manipulation of parameters exchanged between a consumer and an API in order to modify application data, such as user credentials, permissions, or object attributes. Usually this information is stored in cookies, hidden form fields, or URL query parameters. The goal of the attack is to increase application functionality and control. So how are API parameter attacks achieved? Manipulation of hidden fields and HTML forms are used to modify the API requests. Or the URL itself can be modified in an attempt to access information not pertaining to the original request, such as account numbers, profiles, session identifiers, etc. An attacker could also try to pass in SQL injections or other malicious code via body or URL query parameter values. Man-in-the-middle proxy applications are often used to inject the malicious information into the API requests. So which types of APIs are most vulnerable? APIs that utilize URI query string parameter values, APIs that pass data via HTML forms, APIs that pass information as URL encoded data, APIs that do not validate form values or URL parameter values, or do so at the application layer, or what is known as the end mile, or APIs that do not check and restrict HTTP headers. So how does the Forum Sentry API Security Gateway prevent against API parameter attacks? Well, Sentry provides a full protocol break ensuring no direct communication path to applications or services. Sentry inspects all URI, query string parameters, and name value pairs, as well as HTTP form post elements in hidden fields. Sentry also inspects all HTTP headers and cookies. Sentry detects, blocks, and logs these attacks. They never make it to the application server. Let's take a closer look at how Forum Sentry can prevent parameter tampering attacks simply by validating all URL and body parameters in incoming requests. In this brief demo, the Sentry Gateway is securing a weather data API hosted in the cloud. The API consumers access the API through Forum Sentry, which does a full protocol break, and there is no access to the API around Forum Sentry. Through the point-and-click task list processing, Sentry is enforcing several different security mechanisms for this weather API, including SSL, access control via OAuth token validation, malware detection, and rate throttling, just to name a few. Sentry is also checking the query parameters that may be present in either the request URL or request payloads. Sentry is both validating an API key provided as a query parameter value, as well as preventing SQL injections from being passed in the values of a parameter. I'll use the free API testing tool SoapSonar to test this policy. First, I'll make a call into a Sentry OAuth policy to retrieve a valid OAuth token, and then I'll use that token to invoke the Weather API with a valid request, and I'll receive a valid 200 OK response. Now I'll use that same OAuth token, but with an invalid API key which is passed as a query parameter, and this time Sentry rejects the request. Lastly, I'll simulate a SQL injection. Again, Sentry rejects the request. If we view the Sentry logs, we can clearly see that this API request never makes it to the backend system. Sentry properly rejects the message and shows us the patterns that were detected. Please note that Forum Sentry is available as a hardware appliance, virtual appliance for VMware, in the Amazon and Azure clouds, and as a single package install for Linux, Windows, or Solaris. That's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and if you would like more information, please visit us at www.forumsys.com.